we talked to 80,000 people about, which networks they use and how often, very basic. And then we went back to 4,500 of them and asked them very detailed questions about what kinds of things they do on these different networks. And that's the data that we're digging into now. And what was really interesting, though, even in just the basic data on who uses what and how often, is how different Twitter users are from Facebook users, and how different people who post are from people who read, or as we put it, lurk. And this has been a long-standing, recognized phenomenon on even before social media, just on web forums. People have always talked, even listservs, there's always been this conversation about lurkers, because there's a recognition that a relatively small percentage of people actually participate actively and regularly. And in fact, the fact that a third of the people on Facebook and 40% of the people on Twitter post actively is actually higher than people used to estimate participation rates would be. But what's interesting is, when we started the research, it was really with this question of, so what? Okay, we know there's going to be some portion of the Facebook audience and some portion of the Twitter audience that is relatively passive and reads and rarely posts. But if those people are very much like those who are posting and sharing and tweeting and retweeting, then it really doesn't matter that they're passive, because you've got so much data on the active users and the people who are posting and participating that you know what they like, what they want to buy, where they had dinner last night. And if that picture is also representative of the lurkers, then social media monitoring is really all you need to know how to reach a social media audience, because you just listen to what people talk about. And that is very much how social media campaigns have been working in the past few years. And in fact, a lot of marketers use that data not only to inform their social media campaigns, but their print, broadcast, and other kinds of campaigns, because it's such an extraordinary wealth of information and conversation, and it's such an opportunity for brands to know what's going on with their customers, that there really has been this quality of, I think about that story about, the drunk who looks under the lamppost because that's where the light is, right? It's very much like, oh, look, all this light over here telling us what people care about. But what we discovered when we looked at the research we were able to do with these social media users, and in particular when we pulled in the data from previous Vision Critical studies, because the way Vision Critical's software works, they do these surveys like the one we did on social media usage, but the people who've answered those surveys have answered previous surveys, so you can correlate, you can basically cross the answers from one survey with the answers from a previous survey. So I had this fun opportunity where it's kind of like shopping from the best ever mail order catalog. So after we had gone through our data and identified that there was this big group of people who log on very frequently. Of the people who are lurkers, a third of them log on to Facebook several times a day, and 57% of them are on Facebook every day, even though they post 4 times a week or less, and in most cases quite a lot less, like less than every week. So that blew my mind. It's got basically a third of the people on Facebook who are there every day are never posting. Once we had those basic segments of the lurkers and the sharers, I got to go through Vision Critical's, basically their catalog. They gave me a list of, here are all the survey questions we've asked of these people in the past year. What do you want to know? And it was super fun, right? So we looked at pet ownership, and we looked at marital status, and we looked at income, and we looked at workplace influence and attitude statements. And what we found is that there were huge differences between the lurkers and the sharers. So, for example, if you ask people, for these attitude statements, one of the statements is, would you agree with the statement that I like to be the most fashionable person in the room? Well, among Twitter lurkers, people who use Twitter regularly but don't post, about 1 in 5 cares about being the most fashionable person in the room. But among Twitter sharers, it's 1 in 3. And then on Facebook, Facebook lurkers or Facebook sharers are a lot like Twitter lurkers. So about 1 in 5 Facebook sharers cares about being the most fashionable person in the room, but only 6% of Facebook lurkers care about being fashionable. And then, we saw some similar when we ran the Vision Critical as this shopper segmentation that talks about, different, some people are value shoppers, some people are kind of premium shoppers. And again, the social media sharers way more into kind of premium brands, high fashion, The lurkers, much more value shoppers, or just don't even like shopping. And then in the workplace, it turns out that sharers are basically twice as influential, or twice as likely to be influencers. So it's an incredible percentage. About 60% of Twitter sharers have approval or influence over budget decisions, hiring decisions, purchasing decisions, and only about 30% of the lurkers. So, these are huge differences, and if you're basing your business strategy or your marketing strategy on what you know about Twitter users or what you know about Facebook users because of what they're tweeting or sharing, then you're just going to be talking to this one slice. You're going to be talking to the 1/3 who are actively participating, but the vast majority of the audience, the 2/3 or 60% in the case of Twitter, who aren't tweeting or who aren't Facebooking, have incredibly different profiles, different demographics, different income, different spending habits. Like, everything is different, basically. And so, what we're trying to do with this data is to say, how do you develop a social media strategy that actually accounts for a very different group of users you want to reach and that you can reach because they're on social media all the time, they're using it very frequently, but you just don't know anything about them.